Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. My name is Tamala Olsby, and you and I are both all used to meeting together in the late afternoon to go over a common topic about high-quality pre-kindergarten classroom environments. And today our topic is going to be on how to connect the environment to the family and or to the community. So I'm excited about this presentation, and I pray that you'll find something in it that can spur you on to more quality. So thank you for joining us. Remember that there is a question box, so if you want to say something, or when we get to answering questions, that's what you will use. There are a couple of handouts that you can download. And remember that this webinar is being recorded, and it will be available. I will send it to you when we have the recording finished, and you can, so anyone that misses it can get it that way. So let's get going here. So here is our agenda for the afternoon. We're going to first start by talking about why is family engagement important. We'll talk about some obstacles to good family engagement. And then we're going to go over some general guidelines, some learning center help, and some ritual. We're going to talk about rituals in the topic of tying the classroom environment to families. And then, of course, we always leave you with some resources. Today, my hope by the end of this webinar is you will be able to articulate why family engagement is important, that you would be able to discuss the obstacles that are there in establishing family engagement, and you would be able to give some examples on how the classroom environment can enhance both family and community engagement. So let's get going here. Why is family engagement so important? Let's see what the research says. The family seems to be the most effective and economical system for fostering and sustaining the child's development. Without family involvement, intervention is likely to be unsuccessful, and what few effects are achieved are likely to disappear once the intervention is discontinued. Wow. So what I hear here is that, we all try to bring positive outcomes for those children that are in our program. But the effect and the good outcomes that we will be able to attain after a year with them are greatly enhanced if we can engage the family. And if we are unsuccessful in doing that, our influence on that young child is actually greatly diminished. So it makes a difference. It makes a difference for their entire life. So we definitely want to take any opportunity that we have to foster family engagement. So there are obstacles, though. It's not the easiest thing to do. If it was, we would all be doing it. But there are definitely some obstacles that stand in our way. And so I want to go over those with you because I think it's important to identify those. So one of them is I want us to think through, I believe there are obstacles that the teachers face, and then I think there are obstacles that families face. And so what I'd like you to do is, if you would not mind, go to the question box and answer the question, what obstacles do teachers face in family engagement. So if you would not mind writing down some of your answers, I would enjoy that. And I will read them off, and then we will talk about maybe some others that aren't listed. So we'll take a little bit of time right now. What are some obstacles? Oh, language, that's a huge one. Thank you, Tiffany. So often parents or family members don't even speak the same language as the teacher. So that's a huge barrier. Another one that was written was just getting the families to participate. And you know what? That is especially true if it is a full day program, because the family members might be working. And so it isn't easy to take off a day of work so you can participate. And then by the time they get home after a day of work, they often are tired, just like we are. So good answers. Anything else that you can think of that teachers face in getting families to be engaging? What about just lack of time? You know, I look at what the teachers have to do nowadays, and I'm astounded that they can get it all done. And the extra mile you have to go in order to really communicate with each particular family, it takes more time. And often I think that our teachers just have a real lack of time. Anything else? Have you ever known a teacher that in the past had a really difficult parent, and that kind of colored their viewpoint? It made them scared, and that one difficult parent made them fearful of trying to make a difference for the other parents. It just made them feel more uncomfortable. Often teachers feel uncomfortable too when the parents are in the room. They feel like they're grading them or watching or evaluating everything the teacher is saying or doing, when I really don't think that's what families do. Families usually are there to learn. And they're wondering, why did the teacher say it that way? Look what happened. That was cool. And usually it's a positive thing, not a negative thing. But, depending on the teacher's perception, it could be seen as being negative. Good. Thank you for your participation. So let's then talk about what obstacles do you see with the families and the parents then. So not only do the teachers face obstacles in getting really good family engagement, but the parents are a little intimidated by it also. So what obstacles might a family see or experience? Yeah, they're tired. I agree. They're just plain tired. I totally agree. What about their own experiences at school? Perhaps they did not have a great experience at school. And so it makes them nervous. They don't want to re-enter that environment. Good. I love this one. Feeling that the home is the parents' territory, but the school is the teacher's territory. So I shouldn't be in that territory because that's the teacher's territory. I have my territory, it's home, but you're supposed to be in charge at school, so I don't need to be there. I think that's huge. Sue, you wrote schools make some uncomfortable. Yeah, I think it does. Depending on their own experience at school or what happened to them or their past experiences, all of that can really, really make them feel uncomfortable. They might not even know, what are they going to ask me to do? So there are a lot of obstacles. And again, language, Tiffany, I think you said that for the teacher, but that's a scary thing for the parents as well. Have you ever thought, let's say you're the parent of a child that is a little more challenging, and you have the opportunity to drop your child off in a safe, nice environment that you feel comfortable with, and you have a little bit of almost a reprieve. I get to be away from my child for a small amount of time, and I think families with really, really, really difficult children, that is considered a barrier for them. And that having them come back to school and participate is something that really they're just not interested in. So as you can see, I mean, we're taking these pretty quickly, but you can see there are a lot of barriers, a lot of obstacles, not only from the parent's perspective, but also from the teacher's perspective. And obviously what we want is a very strong and trusting relationship. And if we can build that with families, there is a much greater likelihood that family engagement will actually occur. So let's delve into what we're going to really look at today is the classroom environment. We're not going to what we talked about with the teachers, that's going to be it with the teachers. So we're just talking about the general environment of the classroom and how can that help families feel comfortable. So we're going to go over some general guidelines to begin with, and then we will discuss specifically learning centers and some rituals that can occur in a classroom that can link the child, the family, and the school better. So we'll start off with some general guidelines. When you are entering a classroom, the very first couple of things, I've listed 4 items on the right-hand side of this slide. The entrance to the classroom, the signing in of the child, the cubbies, even the initial group time. Those are all things that are mostly done at the very beginning of school. And those things can help a parent to feel, hey, you are welcome here, and we are glad you are here. So we're going to take each of those, entrance to classroom, sign in, cubbies, and group time, and break it down a little bit more. So we'll start with entrance to classroom. So it's lovely when a classroom has a very cheery entryway, and it's welcoming. It looks like you are inviting people in. It looks clean and organized. When that happens, it communicates to the parent, we're ready for you. We're ready for you to come in. We're ready for your child to come in, and we're glad you are here today. It is good to have signs up, and you notice I wrote picture signs, and it is especially helpful for parents that do not speak English so that they are guided and they know what to do, especially at the very beginning of school, or if you know you have a new parent coming in. So we want to make everything about the entrance to the classroom very, very, very clear. We want all the signage in all the home languages that are evident within the classroom, no matter how many that is. With most of the classrooms in Texas, that would include at least English and Spanish. And it is awesome when there is some children's work right near the entrance to the classroom. That spurs on conversation with the family and the child, or with the family and the teacher. Oh, it looks like you're going to do what today? And if there is some evidence of what you're going to do that day, it triggers that thought in the family's mind, and they're more likely to talk about that with their child. And last but not least is the staff. And when I say staff, I mean all the staff. So if there's a teacher and a para, both should be greeting not only the child, but also the family members, all of them. So how could you, I'm going to give you an example of a welcome board. And I saw one of these. It wasn't exactly this. I tried to capture this at a classroom that I was visiting. And you'll notice it has some things in 2 languages. It should have all. But you'll notice some things that it has there. It has a calendar of the school events. It has some songs and rhymes that the children are learning. It has how to connect with other families. So you could hang a recipe up there, or you could say, I need someone to pick up my child on Thursday, or whatever. It has a place for free events in the community. And there's a place where a parent or a family member could leave a happy note for their child. So this is just another way, and this board could be outside the classroom, or it could be immediately inside the classroom. But it tells parents, it tells families, we want you here, and we want you to know what we're doing. And I think it communicates that well. There is another example. We talked about signing in. Now, obviously, children sign in, or their parents sign them in when they come in. But have you ever thought about doing a family sign-in? And these 2 examples, obviously the one with the pumpkin, you could do that in October. So you would have some way of representing the families, and they would move their little popsicle stick with their picture on it, or whatever it is, from one side, they are not here, to the side of the pumpkin that says, I am here. Or they might get the popsicle stick with their picture out of a container and then add it to the pumpkin. You can see the one with the heart, families checked in, families not checked in, and they would just move it. That again says, not only are we glad that your child is here, we're glad you are here also. And it helps them to know, I'm supposed to be here. My child is supposed to be here. It's very important that the child's name on the sign-in sheet is right and it's spelled right. And all of this can be connected, even the sign-in sheets. Have you ever thought about making a border around the sign-in sheet that would go along with the theme or the unit of study that you are doing in pre-kindergarten? So it would automatically tell the parent, this is what we're doing today, or this is what we're learning about. Even Cubbies. Cubbies are important. They tell the family, my child is actually safe here. My child has a space that no one else can put stuff in. That's their space. So if I want to put a blanket or an extra set of clothes, this is my child's space. My child belongs here. And how wonderful, you'll notice on this picture, we put a picture of their family at each cubby area. Some children, especially those little ones that at the beginning of school don't want mom or dad to leave, or grandma, whoever it is. And it is nice when they can walk over to their cubby and be comforted by looking at a picture. It's interesting to see the level of comfort that they get just by looking at a picture of their mom or dad or grandma or grandpa or whoever. You might be wondering, well, where am I going to get these pictures? Well, you could do it on the first day of school. You could, if you do home visits before school starts, you could do it then. You could do it at registration. You could do it at back to school night. It just has to be pre-thought. And then those can be printed and then added to the cubbies. And I do think that is another way to communicate to families that they belong here. This classroom is part of them. Another way just to really entice or make a strong connection with families is at group time. You'll notice on the left-hand side of this slide, I've given you just a picture of a normal group time for pre-kindergarten. But on the right-hand side, it says Family News of the Day, and it's a cork board. And parents could post things that are news to them. So you'll see that there's one little note there that said, our family got a new pet dog. Her name is Cupcake. Our family went to the fair. We saw pig races or whatever. My grandpa is in the hospital. We hope he gets better soon. So it's a way for the family to communicate to the teacher and to the other students that there's something going on in their family. And this can be used as part of the morning routine where those are read. There's a lot of things you can do with these, but this is a great idea. I used to do this when I was teaching, and it was very well used. So I would highly suggest this. Another idea that you could use in the large group area is to identify or to concentrate on a family of the week. So this is a kind of a picture, silly poster that we've put here on the slide. But it says Scott's family, and obviously it has a picture of the family, and it has birthdays and who's in the family and what is the family's favorite meal or colors or restaurant, and did they draw a picture of themselves. But this could be done on a weekly basis. It could be done on a monthly basis. It could be done twice a month, depending on just how often you want to do it. You would give the family a poster or some kind of a form that would have this, and they would do it as a project at home, and then they would bring it back And then the whole school or the whole classroom is learning more about each person in the class's family. I created a very quick little, this is not my forte, but I did want you to have an example of one. So in the handout section, I made up one. It did not take me long, but I just wanted to show you, this is actually a pretty easy idea. You could take this down and have it blown up into a poster size if you wanted. So, but this is a way not only to get to know the families, but each family will get to know each other. When I did this as a teacher, the family members would stay at the beginning of class when they knew we were doing Family of the Week, because they wanted to see about those other families. And it became a real tool in order for the families to learn more about each other. So anyway, those are just some ideas for you. So what do we do about families that we don't see? Specifically, probably the children that are coming to school on a bus, or families that might drop off their child, depending on how you do this at your within your district. There are sometimes families that you see every single day. You see them in the morning when they drop off their child, and you see them in the afternoon when they come and pick up their child. And it's not horribly hard to communicate and have good communication with those families. But what do you do about families that you do not see? Because communication is at the heart of relationships, when you don't see a family, that communication is harder, but it must take the center stage. So let's go over some things that we've already done. So the lines of communication must be made very important. So that might be, how does that parent want to communicate? On the phone, by sending notes home in the backpack? How is the best way for the teacher to communicate with the family? It's also, here are some best practices. It is best practice to communicate with each family at least weekly. It is also best practice to communicate in their home language, which I know is extremely difficult. And it is good practice to communicate through a variety of methods. So that could include anything from notes to a phone call to a newsletter that's done weekly. They have mobile apps where teachers can send text home to a parent. So there's a lot of different media or methods that you can use to communicate, and I think it's good to use all of them. So think about what we were just talking about, the entrance of the classroom, the fact that it's welcoming, that staff greet not only the child but the family, that the instructions are very clear. And think about that for the families you don't see. It should also be true of the families that are arriving to school by bus. Somebody's greeting them. The bus driver's greeting them. They know their child's name. It's welcoming. They're glad to see them. Even signing in and out. That might even be more important on the bus, to sign in, and having that cute little border that we talked about on the sign-in sheet about what the unit of study is going to be. That would even be more important if you were signing in for a child that is going to be traveling to school on a bus. With the Cubbies, you can still take a picture of the families. You can still do that at another event. The welcome board that we talked about might have to be done electronically for those families that you never see. So the teacher might take a picture of it on a daily basis, and that might be sent to the family in the evening. The family of the week idea could still be done. It's just going to be a little more difficult in managing it. So communicating, it's your turn. You're going to have this poster for a week, and then you're going to send it in with your child, and we're going to, do all that. So it's just a little tricky with communication. But most of the ideas that we talked about, they can also be done. You just have to think through them so that they're intentional about it. So how about questions? If you have a question about anything we've talked about thus far, I would love to hear from you. So take a little bit of time. If you have a question, I'll give you a couple of minutes to write it out, and then we'll see if anyone has something they want to talk about. Well, I'm not seeing any questions, so I'm just going to go on. If you come up with one, don't hesitate to type it in. So we're going to move on to learning centers now. And you know that based on our past experiences and webinars, we've spent a lot of time talking about learning centers. They are an important part of the pre-kindergarten learning environment. And during the day, children spend a lot of time in the learning centers. So how could a teacher take the learning centers and connect them in a better way to families or even to the community? So I'm going to give you some ideas about that as well. Here is a picture that I think we used when we were talking about the Science Center. And it is, obviously, this is in a classroom that is learning about plants. So let's say you're the teacher, you're studying plants, and you are focusing on seeds, it looks like. And perhaps one of the items or things that you are doing as an activity in the science area might be to plant a seed. That would be pretty easy to do. So how could you take that activity and connect it more to the family? Well, how about if you had the children bring home a small mason jar, say, and they collected dirt within somewhere on the property of their home. If they live in an apartment, they could, of course, they'd have to get permission, but they could even do it then. Or you might take a walk. I used to always call the walks in class. We really didn't call them walks. We always called them hikes. I just think it sounded more fun. So in our hikes around the school or the neighborhood, we often would must ask if we could borrow some dirt at the local store or at the whatever. And then that dirt could be used in planting the seed. I think that it helps the parent to remember what the child is learning about, and it adds another flavor, if you will, to the activity. It's a connection for the child between the school and their own family. This could be done in the library area too. Often, this is a common item that you see in the reading or the library area within the learning centers. You might have a book made on my family. And so each child makes their family as a page, and then those pictures are put together by the teacher to create a book. and that is kept in the library area. And this is a great way to, again, connect the family to the school. You could also do this with the community. So when you're learning about what things are in the community, or when you're on one of those hikes, you might want to say at the end of the hike, we're going to draw something that you saw. And then that could also be made into a book about their neighborhood or their community. How about the dramatic play area? We would very much recommend that the clothing, the food items, the dishes even, match the cultures of the students in the classroom. So you can see here on the left-hand side, it looks like they're eating some Chinese noodles. They look yummy to me. But notice the dishes, the chopsticks. Notice the picture on the bottom on the left-hand side. That makes me really hungry. It looks like some chips and salsa. There's a taco. Even the items on the right-hand side, these are items that are very, very cultural. When you want to get down to what makes our food different and exciting, in my opinion, is the spices that we use. And so what spices do the children have in their own home? And could you get an empty bottle of it and have that in your dramatic play area? Again, it is a way to connect the family to the child, to the classroom. Or let's say you have an HEB down the street. Then you might, at some point in time during the year, want to make your dramatic play area look like HEB. And again, it is a way to, on one of your hikes, when you're walking around the neighborhood, what is in your neighborhood? And can you replicate that at the dramatic play area? Even blocks can be done with this. So you'll notice, I love this picture on the right-hand side. Obviously, this little person wrote out hospital and did a very awesome job doing it, but there might be a hospital in the neighborhood, or they might have a family member that's in the hospital. And so it was on the child's mind, and they built a hospital while they were in the block area. And somebody probably helped them write that word out. The picture on the right-hand side, or the left-hand side, also you can tell, now this is one that I got from a catalog, you can probably tell, but look at the items that were added to the block area to encourage the children to think about their neighborhood and or things that might be within their city. And that also creates a connection to the community. I used to have to do home visits when I was teaching, and I would ask permission to take a picture of the outside of the child's home or apartment. And I would have those in the block area. So if the children wanted to play or build their house, they could use the picture either as their blueprint, or they could attach it some way to the block with some tape. So there's a lot of things you could do here. You could take pictures of their family members and attach them to blocks. They could play with their own family in the block area. So there's a lot of ways the blocks can be connected either to families or to the community. I have tried to show you several ways to connect a learning center to either the family and or the community. And I would like to challenge you to use this as perhaps a professional development idea for your teachers. So I probably wouldn't give them all these ideas. I keep some. But you might want to do one of them and have them then take the learning centers that they have in the classroom and think of a way to tie it better to the family and better to the community, and use that as and you could do it according to different themes or different units. But that would be a great, I believe, and fun professional development activity. So any questions about that? I'll give you a couple of minutes to think through that. All righty, well, I'm just going to go on, and we will go now into, we've covered the general classroom environment, and then we went over learning centers, and the last thing I want to go over with you are just some common rituals. Every classroom has rituals. And we're going to look at a definition here in a little bit. So we're going to try to figure out how can we make these rituals a little more connected to families and to the community. So I want to make sure we're all thinking about the same thing when we say rituals. So by ritual, what I mean is it is a special action that helps us navigate emotionally important events or transitions in our lives, as well as enhance aspects of our daily routine to deepen our connection and relationships. So let me give you an example, a common example. I would say most teachers at the beginning of a day sing a good morning song. That is a ritual. And it is a ritual that's done every single day. And the reason is it signals to the child, your time now is away from your family, and it is at school. And we are glad you're here. So it helps them navigate the transition, but it also enhances that, often those good morning songs are adorable, and they help the child to feel like they're connected to the classroom. Most teachers sing a goodbye song. There could be a song done at before you eat. There's a lot of things that could be considered a ritual. So we're going to try to go over some examples of how we could tie these rituals to the classroom. But before we do that, I want you to realize that adults, we have rituals too. And I found this example in the Conscious Discipline book, and I think it makes a really good point of why rituals have an emotional tug that is really, really important and should not be overlooked. So let's look at it. This is what it said. My mom used to say, "Night-night, don't let the bed bugs bite." She always said it standing by my bedroom door just before she clicked the lights off. 50 years later, she was wandering around one night, as often happens with people with Alzheimer's. She wandered into my room. I sat up straight in bed, startled awake, and thinking she was probably lost in an agitated state. She flicked on the lights and said, "Night-night, don't let the bed bugs bite." In the midst of 15 years of living with this horrible disease, both she and I found each other for one more moment through this loving nightly ritual. Isn't that a good example? We can use rituals intentionally to connect to families, to children, and to the community. And so that's what we're going to talk about right now. So how could you, I'm going to give you some examples again. So have any of you ever used a kissing cup? This is considered a family connection. And this is an example of a ritual that would tie the students to their families during the school day. So let me explain what it is. It would mean you would give the child, and it would be kept in the classroom, a cup. The cup would have a lid on it, and the parent or the family member dropping off the child would put kisses in it, and then would quickly put the lid on so the kisses can't escape. And then the child would take the kissing cup over to their cubby. And if they needed a kiss during the day, they could go to their cubby, take out their kissing cup, open it quickly to grab a kiss, and then put the lid back on. Believe it or not, I have had a child do this with a parent, and the parent took the kissing cup home. So again, this is a ritual that could be used with all the children, or it could be used maybe with the children that are having problems separating from their significant adult. And it is a way that says to the parent or the adult, we know this is difficult for your child, and we value how this makes you feel. And we're trying really hard to make your child feel connected. And we don't want to come between you and your child. We want them to have a connection with you while they're here. And the communication of that does something to the parent. There's also ways you can connect to a community. This picture shows somebody picking up trash, and but that might not be a bad idea. Put those little gloves on the kids, and maybe they adopt a place in their neighborhood to help clean up, and they pick up. You want to make sure there's not icky things to pick up, though. But it might mean that there is a business nearby that the children could create pictures for, and they could take it to the business. Or perhaps one of the business owners could come and read a book to the children at school. There are ways to connect and to make the entire neighborhood, even the city, pay attention to the school that's there and offer help. Remember, we were talking about the walks around the block or that kind of thing, and I told you that I usually called them hikes. Well, we used to, now don't laugh, but I'm going to sing. So, but we used to sing this when we got back from taking a hike. Oh, who are the people in your neighborhood? In your neighborhood, in your neighborhood. Oh, who are the people in the neighborhood? The people that you meet each day. Okay, that was a little too low for me, but hey. And you would ask the children, what did we see today? You could say, what are the buildings in your neighborhood? And do it that way. You could say, who are the people in your family? Same thing. Who are the people at your school? So there are millions of ways that you could tie that and do some singing. Even tying things to the city. You might want to come up with a song about Austin. Could you do, okay, I got to think of The Farmer in the Dale. My school is in Austin. My school is in Austin. Fa la 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 la. My school is in Austin. My home is in Austin. My home is in Austin. Fa la 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 la. My home is in Austin. So ways to help children try to get the concept of here's my school, my home, my neighborhood, my city, etc. So there's loads of ways you can do this. This is way too fun, as you can tell. Any questions? Give you a couple of minutes and we're getting ready to close down here. So let's move on and talk about what we want to do for our activity for this unit. For our activity, I would really like you to do a couple of things. One is to really try to identify an obstacle. We started with that conversation at the beginning of this webinar, but I think sometimes we just gloss over obstacles and we don't identify. Here is one obstacle that we have at this school or within this classroom, and think through, is there anything I can do about that obstacle? Sometimes there's not, I'll be honest. But a lot of times there are things that you can do to alleviate that obstacle. And then I would like you to think about either how you could improve the entrance to your pre-kindergarten classrooms, or how could you improve the learning centers to connect more effectively to either families or community. So excuse me, two things. Really, I want you to spend some time reflecting on an obstacle that you've identified or that was helped to be identified through this webinar. And then think through, is there a way to improve the entrance to our classrooms? Is there a way to improve our learning centers? And just try to think through that. You don't have to do all three, but I'd like you to do at least one of those. And so today, obviously, we have our webinar. Your activity is this reflections and even maybe some planning. What can I do about that obstacle? How could our entrance be changed? How could our learning centers or our planning for our learning centers be altered? Our PLC will be in a couple of weeks on April 30th at 10 o'clock. And then I will do our last, believe it or not, individual phone call the week of May 6th. And then looking ahead, I wanted to give you a heads up that the next webinar is the last one. I cannot believe that. But its topic is going to be storage, and we all know how hard that is. And we're also going to talk about one of my favorite subjects is the outdoor environment. And I really, really, really want you to hear this webinar. I am working on it right now, and I really, really, really think it's going to be a good one. And I hope you can join us on May 16th. because we're in the middle of May, and I know you're all going crazy in May, just like we are not going to have a PLC for that unit. But I am going to be available to speak with anyone the week of June 3rd. I'm not going to do individual phone calls unless you say, Tamala, I really want to speak to you about this. And I would love to talk with you about storage and outdoor equipment or outdoor environment if you want to. And I will be available on the week of June 3rd to do that. So some resources. I got a bunch of the stuff that we got today. It was from here. I didn't come up with all those ideas. I would have loved to, but I didn't. So you want to check out these websites because they have a lot of good resources. And of course, as always, our SharePoint site, and you have my information there. So these are the things that we talked about today, how important family engagement is. Yes, there's some obstacles, but there are ways that we can engage families and the community through just the environment. And how can we do that? And here is a great quote from somebody that I do not know who it was, but I loved it when I read it. It says, parent involvement in education is like frosting on a cupcake. It makes it complete and oh, so sweet. So with that, I'd like to thank you for joining us today and have a great rest of the afternoon.